Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the April 4th, 2023 meeting of the Audit and Finance Committee meeting. First thing on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Can I have a second to adopt the agenda as written?
Second.
Perfect. Minutes have been posted. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to read them. I'd like to have a second on the motion to approve the minutes as written. And that's regarding the March meeting.
Second.
First thing on the action items, section 2 is the Head Start COLA quality improvement. There is a request for the board to approve the Head Start early Head Start funding COLA supplement and quality improvement application through May 31st to 2024. Dr. Kennedy. Jack.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to turn this over to Kim Foxworth, who will be presenting this information.
Roski and the Audit and Finance Committee. I'm here on an annual visit. We are submitting an application. The Office of Head Start has annually for the last couple of years has allowed us to apply for quality funds and COLA. I'm going to talk to the quality and I'm going to ask Ms. Rock to speak to the COLA funds. And so we have an opportunity to apply for COLA quality funding. And what we're going to use the funding for is three big reasons. Is we want to make sure our teachers have the have support around the social emotional development. So we're going to contract with Conscious Discipline, not necessarily to provide something for students, but what we're going to start with is making sure our teachers are able to handle when they get upset and when challenging situations arise. And so Mary Ford utilizes this, and that was the first step they took, is really working with the adults to make sure when a challenging behavior comes, they know how to handle themselves. And so that's one thing. We're also going to focus on early literacy, and we're going to contract with Heggerty's. Heggerty's is the curriculum, the phonological awareness curriculum that we use in Head Start and CD and in other grades. And what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that they've been using it for a while, but what we've been noticing is they're probably not using it to the full fidelity. So we're going to have them come out and do initial training. We're going to have them model a lesson, and then they're going to come back and watch the teachers model, do a lesson and provide feedback. And then they're going to work alongside our education managers to make sure that Heggerty's is done with fidelity. As you know, one of our board goals is to make sure that the 4K improve on the rhyming and the sound ID for my IGD. So we want to make sure that in 3K, they're getting the foundational skills. And then there's some other things that we're going to do, but those are the biggest pieces of this. I'm always looking for ways to shore up the quality of instruction in Head Start. And so we're going to utilize this funding and Head Start and early and Head Start to do so. And then for the one difference is for early, there's this training that we've been wanting to do for a while called PITC, that's specialized training in infant toddler care. And so that's what we're going to use that for. Ms. Rock, can you talk about the COLA funding and how we utilize it?
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Avis Rock. I am the budget manager for Head Start Early Head Start. And as Kim stated, annually, we do receive COLA funds from the Office of Head Start to support and also to supplement the salary increases that are approved by the board. Now, your letter of guidance does state a 5.9% or 5.6% increase. However, whatever the board approves in the next fiscal year for all employees, that will be the budget that we're supporting with this COLA based on that approved COLA amount for all employees. If there are any additional funds remaining, I think there's a little less than $100, maybe $1,000, $2,000. We're going to direct those to higher operating costs. Now, if the board does not approve up to the 5.6%, we will use any monies beyond that point to support the higher operating costs of the budget. Thank you.
We're available to answer any questions.
Any questions from the committee?
Yep.
Hearing none, I'd like to have a motion to move this on to the board for consideration.
So moved.
Second.
Excellent. Moving on to item 2B, excuse me. Oh, I'm sorry. Can I have a vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item 2B, the fixed cost of ownership. There's a motion in front for the board to approve the reallocation of funds as shown on the attached resolution to the document. And this is for the fixed cost of ownership, FCO FY23 budget reallocation.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Bowery.
Good afternoon, committee. We have a fixed cost of ownership budget for technology software of nearly 12 million. As we near the end of this fiscal year, we've identified some cost avoidance. Learning Services did receive some funds matches that allowed us to reduce the amount of money we needed to spend on software. And we had one other program which wasn't purchased. With that, $527,000 plus is available for realization. And we're proposing that 427,000 of it be pushed toward our facilities management program. And we've got a backlog of nearly 40 million there, and the remainder to furniture, fixtures, and equipment to cover some late ads that we've received over the course of this year.
Any questions from the committee? Hearing none, I'd like to have a motion to have this request moved on to the board for consideration to approve the allocation of funds as shown on the allocated attached resolution. Do I have a motion? A second?
Second.
Can I have a vote?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to action item 2C, approval of projects greater than 250,000. There's a motion to present to the board to approve the projects on the attached list. Ms. Harlan.
Yes, hi, thank you. Hello, committee. The list is for the approval for contracts exceeding $250,000. There are 13 projects listed costing a little over $14 million. That includes several summer projects and renovations to include painting, signage, roof replacements, flooring, and lighting. I do need to make a note. There are 2 items that need to be corrected, and I apologize. We'll get this corrected, but on line item number 2, we referenced the wrong funding source. It should be sales tax phase 5. And then on item number 6, we referenced the wrong funding source as sales tax phase 5, and that should be sales tax phase 4. We'll make those corrections after this is approved this evening so that the board members have the correct document. And that concludes the approval list for contracts greater than 250,000.
Any questions from the committee?
Nope.
And these are all of the items that we'll be meeting with shortly to get approved so that we can get these moving along.
Yes.
Hearing no further questions, I'd like to have a motion to have this motion moved on to the board to approve the projects on the attached list of the approval of projects greater than 250,000. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A second. Can I have a vote, please?
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes unanimously to move this onto the board. On to the information items under section 3, the monthly capital projects report.
Good afternoon, Chairman Grabowski and committee. I'd like to present the February 2023 capital projects report. We have received our first month's revenue for the 2023 through 2028 program, and it is $484,000 over the cash flow model projection, which is based on the most recent collections with a 2% growth over the prior year. So we're off to a really good start. The expenditures for the month for the 2010-2016 program were $0. The 2016 through 2022 building program expenditures were $1.5 million. The 2023 through 2028 capital building program expenditures were $3.2 million. The 2023 through 2028 capital building program funded with long-term debt was $14,000. Our fixed cost of ownership fiscal year 23 program is nearing its completion in May. And on February 27th, the board approved the band and the approval for our FCO 24 projects. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Have any questions back from the committee? Excellent start for the year. Moving on to information item B, the ESSER update.
Yes, thank you. So this is the overall snapshot of how much the district has spent on ESSER funds through February 28th. We've expended all of ESSER 1, but moving to ESSER 2, to date, we have spent $16.8 million and have encumbered approximately $7.6 million, with $4.1 million remaining in ESSER 2. In ESSER 3, year to date, we have spent $43.2 million and have encumbered $21.3 million, with a remaining of $86.8 million. As we've previously mentioned, we are in the final stages of modifying this report format that would give more in-depth views of the different funding sources and the different categories. And this concludes the February update on ESSER funding.
I was looking at, are there any questions from the committee? I'm sorry.
This is Kent. I was curious on the couple of line items where looks like we are going over, but it's reallocated from other sources. Are there any, well, one, how does it happen? And then two, are there any ramifications for that happening?
Yes. So how that happens is we need to do an amendment on ESSER 2 funding, and we're in the midst of compiling all that information now. And once that's done, those negatives will be fixed and everything will be allocated correctly.
But are those items where we changed our plan, or like, I'm just curious how that evolves.
Lisa, I'm going to need to defer to you on that question.
It is over time, those plans change. So this plan was developed quite a while back, and we're getting close to the end. So now, like in the category 3, where you see the overage there, a lot of that is personnel, and a lot of that was budgeted based on average salaries. And when the actual people get into those positions, some are paid higher, some are paid lower. It doesn't come out exact. And now that we're down to the last $4 million to spend on this, we will start shifting it around to basically cover what we need for the rest of the program. The negative doesn't mean that we've overspent. The negative means that if everything that's encumbered right now was spent out to the end of the year, we'd be over. It doesn't actually impact the actual spending. So that's why the amendment will get it straight in the categories that we need to finish it out. And we're planning on doing that either later this month or in May.
So if we didn't get the amendment for whatever reason, not that we won't, but I guess there's time to, I had presumed encumbered meant we were contractually committed, but you could shift directions to not be over budget if necessary.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
No further questions from me.
Any further questions from the committee?
Is there a reason why you wait until the end to rebudget and not like rebudget as you're looking at it and as you're incurring additional costs, so that you stay out, you minimize the risk of overspending?
We have done multiple amendments throughout the year. This is just going to be the final amendment for this particular grant. But we look at this quarterly when we're doing our expenditure claims to see how we're running what it looks like, what we think we might need to move. It takes a little bit of time to actually develop the amendment and get it submitted and approved, but this isn't the only amendment we've done on this. There's been several.
Sorry, and does this all need to be spent by the end of this fiscal year, or we lose it, or how does that?
September 30th, 2023. So this fall.
Okay. So if we don't spend it, we would lose it. Is there any risk of that happening?
I don't believe so. And the amendment that we're planning to do, we're going to actually shift a bit to cover the negatives and to fund our summer programs. And they will run partially in this fiscal year and partially at the beginning of next. So we will have plenty of time before September to spend them.
Thanks again.
The dashboard on the website at the bottom, that it shows out all the expenditures. That's been amended. Was that part of the work that we were doing?
No, what we're looking at modifying is a completely different dashboard. And we're very close. We've got a couple of things that we just have to work through internally with our business intelligence office, but we're trying to get it up and posted on our website, as soon as possible.
It's not a modification, it's a completely new product, right?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Yeah, it's a completely new product where you can drill down and get more, see more information.
Yeah, because I know with this dashboard, it's kind of hard trying to figure out, the end user. I mean, you've got the numbers and the information, and you can go back and look through the plans, but it's not that user friendly when you're trying to look at how a certain procurement was spent. The auditor said something interesting that I don't know. I mean, when I asked the question whether ESSER had been included in their audit of the procurement, they said no. So when I went back and started looking at a lot of the line items on that dashboard, I noticed that there were an awful lot. It just seemed like there were a lot of attempts to keep to keep POs under 50,000. Is ESSER subject to the procurement code?
Yes, sir, it is.
And who's in charge so the procurement department then would be in charge of all the POs?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. And I think the committee should go back and look at that dashboard and look at some of the expenditures of how these expenses are done. Because it's my understanding under the procurement code, any PO over $50,000 has to be bidded out as part of the state process. There are some exemptions depending on the type of service.
Oh, depending on the type of product, right? So sole sourcing obviously wouldn't have to be done. But what other type of products would there be an exemption?
Different types of educational services. There's a whole list, and unfortunately, I don't have that list with me, but I can definitely share that.
That would be great, because that would probably solve a lot of the questions that I'm being asked.
Yeah, so you can just send the reference to the procurement code where those exemptions are.
Yes.
Because it also seems that we're hitting that fund pretty hard to pay for substitute teachers. And my concern is when you start looking at the amounts and then you start thinking about what we're going to be looking in the future of trying to fund. And once again, that's not a procurement issue. I think that's more about, a budget and for consideration in the future. And there may be a simple answer as to why, we spend so much ESSER funds on, subs and Kelly services for teachers.
So there are two primary reasons that the federal government released these funds. One was early stages of the pandemic to make sure that school districts are able to operate, reopen safely. So with ESSER one, that's an example, a substantial amount of that $13.4 million went to facilities type things to make sure that we have safety within our school buildings. And then part of the ESSER two also. And then so that was one, making sure that we were able to create safe environments for our students and for our staff. And then the second one is because of all the learning loss that students went through to try and recover from those, from the learning loss associated with kids not being in the classroom, not being in school, or if they're in school, this idea of being taught virtually versus with a live teacher in front of them. And so a lot of that spending took place in the summer. We brought in a lot of substitute teachers to take care of whatever the Head Start folks a few minutes ago talked about the social emotional increase of that $300,000. There's been a tremendous negative impact on staff and students around the social emotional pieces there. And so a lot of the expenditures that you've seen, that you will see and have seen in the ESSER is to take care of some of that.
Yeah, and that my concern is this dashboard's talking about funds that are being spent in this school year. So it just seems like there's an awful lot of ongoing, even up to today. Well, I mean, it closed out in February. So, but, from July to February, when you look at how many subs are used and the additional expenditures that are used for, teaching support, and then you realize that at some point we've got to work that in because these funds will not be available, much longer. So, it just, it's one of those awareness. I also, I don't know who's auditing this or how, do we have an internal auditor group that's looking at how these expenditures are being done? Because some of these expenditures, like $10,000 for the Van Gogh immersion out at Burke, was kind of like, is that an ESSER? How's that fall into ESSER?
I'm sorry, what's the expenditure? I didn't hear.
It was at $10,000 on 12/18 for the Van Gogh immersion at Burke.
Yeah, so as an example, so one of the things that we've done is to provide opportunities for students to be able to have exposure to things that they otherwise may not because of the economic conditions of their families. So the students that we took to the Van Gogh exhibit up in North Charleston came from our Title I schools, and we were exposing those students to some artistic opportunities.
And the other thing, when you look at it, you just see so many of these consultants coming in, and then you see and I don't know if they're EL consultants that are being brought in, because you look at the extreme number of hotel expenditures that are being nailed, or being applied to ESSER funds. And then you see, it just seems like this magical number. They get close to $50,000, and then you've got a new consultant, and he gets up and he comes in for about, or whoever it is, for about 2-3 months. They get up close to $50,000 and they're gone. But then hopefully that's going to be cleared up with the document that shows that that's not something that has to be, bid out. But I'm hoping that we have some type of internal auditing that is looking at this so that it complies, knowing that that audit was saying, when you read it, it says it's not just the procurement they may be having problems with. When they did their review, they were a little concerned that this problem of not following procurement could be in other departments. So I'm hoping that we have some type of internal review on this, because when you look at that dashboard and you look at the numbers, and when you start adding everything up, you can see how close it gets to that 50,000. No, let's not talk about the 250. Now, the great thing is every time I see the capital projects in there, I understand it right off the bat, because I saw the presentation that you brought, Ms. Bowery, that you brought. I saw how it was approved. I saw how it was reviewed. But when you look at a lot of these other expenses, it's a little confusing, and I can see how people could have, questions. But I think finding the exemptions will be a big help. Once again, I would just ask the committee to look at this dashboard because I think the dashboard really is fascinating. To me, I know how hard I am on my staff with using Amazon because it's just, when you see 20 pages of Amazon expenses, you can't figure out what they are. And then when you see, countless expenses for 80 cents, 75 cents, on Amazon, that's easy. Just buying 2 pens right there. So I'm not, questioning the validity of that because I'm assuming we have a good, or are asking that we make sure that we have a good, auditing process in place. But I know that can happen. Anyway, with that being said, I guess enough beating that one into the horse. Let's move on to information items 3C, which is the monthly financial report.
Thank you. So actual revenues are projected to be approximately $7.2 million over budget due to increases in local and state tax revenues. And actual expenditures are projected to be $10.8 million under budget, mostly due to savings in salaries and benefits from vacancies. At this point, through the end of February, we are projected to use $757,000 in fund balance. And this concludes the February financial update.
Excellent.
Yes.
Hopefully we can catch up to Berkeley on their reserve now that the Post and Courier has been so nice to let us know where everybody's reserves are, but we're on the right track. On to item, any questions from the committee? I'm sorry. Hearing none, we will move on to item 3D, the budget process update.
Thank you. Every time we update this, this milestone calendar, we want to bring it to Audit and Finance as well as the board's attention. If you look on page 2, just wanted to make everyone aware that we have some upcoming budget workshop overviews. There's one on April 24th, which is for the combined committee of the whole and board meeting. And then we'll have another one on May 8th, which is the committee of the whole. We're still scheduled to do our first reading of the budget on May 22nd, and the second reading of the budget, which will also be our public hearing on June 26th. And that concludes this part of the presentation.
Any questions from the committee?
Yeah, I have a question. Did I understand that today we have an initial 24 projections for revenues and expense?
Yes, sir. And I meant to notate that. When I initially put this together, that was the intention. We've been doing a lot of different school data reviews, and we have, we're working through the ESSER 2 sunset funding. So unfortunately, we were not able to bring those projections. We were not able to bring good projections to share with you. We just have a lot of things that we still need to work through with leadership.
Do you anticipate us getting those just in advance of the budget workshops, or are you thinking circulate that by email? I'm presuming you don't want to schedule a separate special meeting just to review the initial projections, or what are your thoughts?
For the initial 24 projections for revenue and expenditures. Yes, sir. Yes, when we have those done, we will definitely email them to the Audit and Finance Committee.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
It seems like a lot to do on that day. Is that something that routinely happens in your past experiences that, we get that wishing hour because of the spring break?
Yeah, so April is always a challenge, a month of challenges associated with the length of meetings and the number of meetings because of the spring break. So as Jack indicated, we have the first reading of the budget in May. So we definitely need to have a workshop with the board in April on that, so that you can understand where we're headed with revenue projections, expenditures, and district priorities. And so it's hard to get around not having that type of engagement on one day in April, unless we have a separate call meeting for the board workshop on the budget. Now, that's a possibility.
Let's hope not. appreciate all the hard work you have to do. Great. It looks like we have blasted through this. I appreciate the committee. Appreciate staff's working. So we've moved for all the 3 action items to move forward, so we don't have to worry about that. It's on the record. We voted on that. Going through all the information. So the next thing is just to announce that the upcoming meeting of the audit finance will be May 2nd, 2023. Unless we have any other special meetings that may be called by the board. I don't see any. Other than that, any further closing items, any issues from the committee? We really need like another statement for other business. So, you know, they can actually add something more. Hearing none, I'd like to have a motion to adjourn. For a second, please.
So moved or seconded?
We are adjourned.
Yes.